purpose of this meeting is for information that we think is very vital and important that members of our community receive. There will be question and answer for the guests. One thing that I need to emphasize, I can't allow any questions about any current cases that may be in litigation or current cases that are under investigation in a public meeting like this. But the purpose of our meeting tonight is to put out information to people about what can happen with our children, what has happened with our children. We have some guests here that from different facets. The first guest is John Calvert. He's the director of the Safe and Secure Schools for Kansas State University. We initially had a member of the FBI that was going to come to speak, but he called me yesterday, and he's been called out of state on a case, and so he had to leave rather suddenly. But Mr. Calvert, again, is the director of the Safe and Secure Schools through Kansas State University. He has information for you about the different websites and the different tactics that predators may use to entice children into the type of things that we're talking about tonight, sexual predators, sexting. We even have sex trafficking that has happened in our county where children have been lured by a predator to go out and meet somebody out on the interstate, and luckily they were intercepted and it didn't happen. But without further ado, Mr. John Calvert.
Thank you guys so much, and thank you, Sheriff, for inviting me. I'm probably not as good looking as the FBI agent that was going to come here, but I'll try to be just as entertaining. As he said, my name is John Calvert. I am the director of the Safe and Secure Schools unit at the Kansas State Department of Education. Although my wife graduated from K-State with her bachelor's and her doctorate degree in education, and I may be wearing purple right now, I'm a Jayhawker. There's one team still playing basketball in the state of Kansas. I believe that we all should get behind them and cheer for them and pray for safety and no more COVID issues. Right. If it happened in '88 to Danny, it can happen now. I graduated in 2006, actually from Washburn University, and majored in criminal justice. Went straight into law enforcement and was a law enforcement officer for 12 years. The last 6 was as the school resource officer in Jackson County, Kansas. I was the SRO in Royal Valley, Holton, and Jackson Heights. And I like to tell people that I was the best SRO in Jackson County. Before Sir up there says anything, I was the only SRO in Jackson County, but I was the best one. And most importantly, especially for a presentation like this is my family. I have these kiddos right now are 9 and 6. My daughter's in 4th grade, my son's in 1st grade, and my wife is actually an elementary school principal. So when I come and talk about this kind of stuff, I talk from it because school safety and keeping our kids safe is a passion of mine, but it doesn't take much for me to put on the parent hat. And so I understand where you guys are coming from, I understand the fears and the thoughts that go on, and so that's kind of, I will mix that into this presentation, and you will hear about my 9-year-old daughter an awful lot tonight. And probably as much to where when you see her on the streets, you can say, I know everything there is to know about you. Before we get started, I know we're streaming this or recording this for YouTube. This is for adults only. I don't give this presentation to children. I don't want to give them any ideas. And so it is for adults only. I use adult content, I use adult words because it's important. If there's one thing that I learned about being an SRO is that words matter and the words that we use matter. So I don't shy away from it, and especially in a room full of adults, I feel comfortable using adult terminology. I also will not touch base on every single social media app out there. Okay, I asked the sheriff if we could turn this into a sleepover for the weekend and just go all the way till Sunday, and he declined. So I'm going to try to keep it to about 45 minutes. Just know that these are what the most popular apps out there right now, but that doesn't mean that there's not something else out there that I'm not going to cover tonight. This is a sign that I have in my office. I live by it. I truly believe it. There are no bad kids. Zero. I don't care. There are no bad kids. Right? Especially in 2021, with everything going on in the world, with COVID, with social media. They're just trying to figure stuff out just like we are. And so there are no bad kids. All right? With that being said, hormones are the devil. Okay? Talk to anybody who was at one of my schools. If I was having a rough day, I'd go to the elementary school and I'd get my high fives and my one-arm hugs and I'd feel real good about myself. If I was having a good day, I'd go to the high school and joke around with kids and be sarcastic, but I stayed far away from the middle school. One, because they don't know how to shower. Two, they don't know how to use deodorant. And three, and probably most importantly, what made them laugh 30 seconds later will make them cry. And I don't understand it. But this is what our kids are dealing with, right? And they're dealing with it while they're on technology, while they're on social media, while they're trying to go through this together. And that's important to realize, especially since the target age for a lot of these predators out there are 11 to about 15 when the kids are dealing with this. I like to put this up here because it's a scapegoat for me as a dad. Social media apps have age restrictions. Most of them, as in like 99% of them, are 13. So when my 9-year-old daughter comes and says, I want to download TikTok, I say, you're not 13. Nana boo-boo, stick your head in duty. But my friends have TikTok. I'm not their parent, right? It says 13. So you're creating a fake profile or you're checking a box for their terms and conditions saying you're 13, so you're lying. Do we lie in this house, Abby? No. Good. And I'm done, right? But a lot of apps out there, like I said, 99%, the age restriction is about 13. All right? And that's because that has to cover the butts legally of those apps. But we start from the beginning. And I am in that debate with my wife right now on when do we get our 9-year-old a cell phone? What do you need a cell phone for? Well, I want to call you. No, you don't. Don't call me. I want to talk to you on the phone. What? If you want to call me, use your mom's phone. Where are you where you need to call me? I want to text you. No. What do you need a phone for? Right? My friends have phones. Right. There we go. Now we're getting into it. Every phone that connects to the internet, every phone that we buy is going to have the internet. The internet, depending on who you talk to, was invented in 1989 or 1990. Again, depending who you talk to. But the number one thing searched on the internet since the invention of the internet in 89 or 90 is pornography. So that gets back in the day in 2004 when I had to get onto the computer and type in www.thefacebook.com and it would take me to Facebook. And millions of other people were doing this. And so every day we were typing in facebook.com, facebook.com. That didn't even come close to the amount of pornography searches. So I say that all kids are good and there's no such thing as a bad kid, and I truly believe it. I know that if I give my daughter the internet, she would never, ever search up pornography. She's an angel. She would never do it. But her friends would tell her to, right? So your kids are all angels, but they're friends. And if you're sitting next to your kids' friends' parents, it's their fault. It's the other kids, right? It's never our kids, angels. But it's silly for me to believe as a parent that if I give my child the internet, they're not going to search the number one most searched item since the invention of the internet. So I told my wife, when we are ready to talk to my daughter or our daughter and our son about what love is, what sex is, what pornography is, and what sex is not, then we can give her a cell phone. And so that solved that issue for right now as a 9-year-old, because my wife doesn't want to have that discussion. But if you're giving your child a phone, I don't care how old they are, be ready to have that discussion, because they're going to search it. Their friend's going to tell them to type in something. They're going to view it. And so it's better that they hear it from you guys and understand what's going on. First real big app out there, Facebook. Like I said, I got it in 2004. You had to have a college email address, and it was cool. And it wasn't until about 2006 when I got a friend request from my mom that it was not cool anymore. But here's the tagline: invite them all. It doesn't matter who they are. And that's something that we need to know as adults, is that our kids get a lot of their self-worth. They get a lot of who they are as people and their value from how many friends they have, how many likes they get, how many shares they get. So much so that they will literally create fake profiles to friend themselves so they can have more friends who will then like and share and follow them. And that's not just for Facebook, that's all of social media. Tons of fake accounts. As law enforcement, when I would investigate crimes, especially on social media, it was really fun to watch who's liking what posts, and then saying, well, that fake account is actually this person's. And I go, hey, I know about your 4 accounts, and I'm sure you have more. And they go, you know about my accounts? Yeah, because you don't follow anybody else, you don't friend anybody else, and you're the only one sharing and liking this stuff. It's really easy. But they get their value, they get their self-worth from their friends. I talk to kids all the time. Hey, how many of you guys have 500 friends on Facebook? Everybody's hand goes up. How many of you guys have 1,000? I had a kid one time tell me they had over 3,000 friends on Facebook, and this was a middle school student. I said, how many of those do you actually talk to on a monthly basis, face-to-face? Huh, like 20. How many of those friends do you actually know in real life? Not a lot. Then why are you friends with them? There's no answer, because they know the answer is, because I got to have more friends. Again, their self-value, their self-worth comes from that number. And that's what they've been told. Invite them all, friend them all. You're not cool unless you have 2,000 friends. We get into Instagram. And Instagram is dangerous because there's no content filter. You can scroll through and see whatever anybody is posting. Also, it's dangerous because it's a popular app. And so if I, as a child sex trafficker, or I, as a predator, want to get to you, I'm going to go to where you are. It's the reason that 4 years ago I got Twitter. Because a kid said, I wanted to contact you, but you didn't have Twitter. So I got on Twitter. And 4 years later, I have no idea what I'm doing on Twitter, but that's where the kids were at the time. Right? And that's how they wanted to reach out to me as the SRO, so I made a profile. If I know that the kids are on Instagram, I'm going to go to Instagram. There's no content filter. There's explicit images and videos. You get into the sexual content and the chats. And again, you don't really know who you're talking to. As far as dating apps are concerned, I'm going to talk about a couple of them. Just know that 95% of them have geolocation. So I can pull up a map and I can figure out where you are. And so when I'm talking to you on the chat feature and it says, and you say, oh, I'm at home, I now know where your home is. Or you say, oh, I'm working, you don't have to tell me where you work, the map shows me where you work, right? The other thing is this, kids don't date like we used to date. They talk. That was the weirdest thing. Well, I talked to high school kids. Oh, I see you and Johnny are dating. Oh, we're not dating, we're just talking. What does that mean? Right? So these dating apps are not for dating. They're to go out and hook up and have sex. That's what they're used for. It's generally known that if you talk to somebody and plan to meet up with them, it's not for dinner and a movie, it's to have sex. And whatever niche that you decide is 100%, they've made an app for it, right? Meet me. It's based on location. So they're going to not hook me up with somebody in California. these apps are going to give me like a 30, 50, 100-mile radius, and that's how they're going to start matching me with people. Grindr, it's based and for the LGBTQ community. So if I'm LGBTQ and I want to find somebody else like that, that's where I'm going to go. You got Scout, and this is so much fun because it's supposed to prohibit people under the age of 17 from sharing any photos. Just like we talked about earlier, if I'm 16, it takes one click of the mouse to make myself 19, right? I love seeing on some of my social media sites, some of the kids that were in high school when I was in SRO and they were 14, 15, 16, are now 34 years old because when they created the profile, they just scrolled up and picked a number over the age of 13, and so this is good. I go, wow, you're almost as old as I am. And they're like 18, 19, 20. Oh, I just haven't changed. They're going to change their age. They're going to change a lot of stuff about them just so they can get on. Again, Badoo, like you share photos, you get to chat, it's based on location. That geolocation is what is going to get a lot of us in trouble. Tinder is probably the most popular dating app. But again, lots of fake accounts, because if I'm going to try to go lure somebody, I'm going to go to where you are. So if you're on Tinder, I'm going to create my fake profile, and I'm going to lure you away, and I'm going to use this to get you out into the open where I can get you. Bumble, it's beautiful. If you've ever, females in the audience, I apologize. Men are stupid, and we're idiots, and we don't know how to talk to you, okay? So I apologize. Because if you've ever posed as a female on a dating app or on an application at all, my wife shows me all of these messages that she gets from guys, and I'm like, what in the world? This works? So Bumble fixed that. Women have to make the first contact. But just like I can make myself 19, I can make myself a female, right? I can change my gender. If I'm going to create the fake profiles to do what I need to do, it's as simple as a mouse click. And there's no social media police that are coming knocking at our door to make sure we are who we say we are. This is a big one over in California on the West Coast, but it's moving over here as well. I talked to a ton of kids, and some of them have it, some of them don't. The instant messaging and virtual universe. The scary part with this is that there's a private feature in a private room where you create an avatar, head to toe, and you walk around this fake world, and you talk to people. And then you can go off into a secret room and have sex with them. What? Why is that even a thing? Why can't we scrub this off the face of the planet? But it's huge, right? This is one of the most popular apps out on the West Coast. Again, it's making its way this way. So look out for it. The chat's not filtered. You can get into some explicit content. And again, it's about meeting random people and having sex with them. You can also then set up to meet in real life, which is scary as well. Ask FM and TikTok. Anything that you, and I tell kids this, anything that you do on the internet that is anonymous is wrong. Because if you don't have the guts to say it to the person's face, let alone say it to the person behind the keyboard, why are you talking anonymously, right? And so I get on this website, and it's funny because they have this video, and it's, I was just having the worst day. Got some 15, 16-year-old high school student. I was having the worst day ever. And I got on this, and people said, oh my goodness, did you see how she was dressed? She is so beautiful. Oh my goodness, I just love her new perfume. She smelled so good. God, she's just such a great friend and a great person. And that just made me feel great. Really? That's what our kids are going to say? Anonymously? Lies. They're going to bully people, right? They're going to cyberbully. They're going to post questions like, oh my gosh, did you see John's bald head? Can you believe that he didn't powder it before he came and spoke? And the lights are glaring off his bald head? Oh, he's such an idiot. Like, that's what they're going to say. I don't get political, and I know this got political a couple of years ago, but I've been talking about TikTok for a long time. It is the #1 most dangerous app out there. And it's not my opinion. It's factual. Again, why? Because this is where our kids are. It's the #1 most downloaded app since January of 2020. Kids think it's funny. You get to make these little videos. You get to do all this fun stuff. But it has very limited privacy controls. You're exposed to cyberbullying. You're exposed to inappropriate content. There is no filter. So whatever people post, you see. I can't make it to where my 13-year-old doesn't see something that 13-year-olds shouldn't see. It just is what it is. And again, because it's the #1 most popular app, these are where our child sex traffickers are going. It's the #1 most used app for child sex trafficking out there today. That is why it is the #1 most dangerous app. So when I talk to my daughter's friends' parents, and they say, oh yeah, we let them use TikTok, I lose my mind. Tide Pod Challenge. Sorry, Tide Pod Challenge. Y'all remember that one? Where it was eat a Tide Pod. That was TikTok. And our kids did it because it was a challenge. One of the ones out there about 6 months ago was Punch an Old Person Challenge. And they would film themselves running up behind some random old person and punching them in the head and then running off. Because there's a challenge. We have to do it. It's a challenge. Somebody challenged me to do it. And it gets likes and it gets follows and it gets all this attention. I just want to put out something that's like, hey, delete all social media challenge. But you can't post about it because you don't have social media. #1 most dangerous app out there. Kick. There are apps out there that go around and try and get around what we as good parents or we as parents are trying to do, and that's monitor our kids. Kick is text messaging, but it's text messaging done through Wi-Fi. So when you as an adult go through your kid's phone and scroll through and say, all right, I looked at your social media, I looked at your text messages, thank you for being a good kid. Kick is hidden away, and as long as they can get Wi-Fi, they can start texting people. And again, it works like text messaging, but it's private because the adults don't know what it is. So the adults aren't checking. Chatspin is actually a 4th generation app. So you get these generational apps where we know that they're bad and we know that they're wrong, so we shut them down, and then it pops up again with a different name. What this does is you sit down in front of your webcam, in front of your cell phone, whatever you have, and it connects you in an instant to someone, anyone around the world. You can't search for gender, you can't search for age, you can't search for anything like that. It's just random. Go. So I'll talk about this a little later, but I download these apps. And I create profiles. And I go out and I see what there is to do. I have my wife next to me. This one was not good to have my wife next to me. I click go. You don't even create a profile, by the way. There's no profile. You just hit go. And it connects you to somebody. And I did it 10 times, because you can say leave and go somewhere else, leave and go somewhere else. And it just bounces you from room to room to room. I did it 10 times. 9 times out of 10, it was a man masturbating. And it didn't show his face. It showed the other region. So if I, the 37-year-old man, am clicking through this, what is the 16-year-old girl doing? Who's at a slumber party, right? Who's out with her friends and they've decided to get on this thing. What are they saying? Because I can guarantee you they're saying the same thing I am. But it's gross. So it started with chat roulette, they shut it down. It went to Omegle, they shut it down. They went to Ola, they shut it down. Omegle, by the way, has now popped back up. Go figure that one. They shut down the app, but it's working again. But they're all the same. They just pop up with different names. Whisper, again, Anything you can do anonymously online is wrong. This is one of those where you get to go and tell strangers your secrets in fact. Well, what these child sex traffickers will do is they will go and they'll talk to our kids. And they're really good at playing this long game of, it doesn't have to be today, it doesn't have to be tomorrow, it could be a month, whatever it may be. And they'll coerce all this information out of them. Oh, I'm your friend. I'm so glad you can trust me. What's your name? Where are you from? What school do you go to? What's all this? Hey, I want to friend you on Facebook. I want to friend you on Instagram. What's your Instagram handle? What's your Twitter name? Let me friend you so that we can connect that way and you can get another follower. And then all of a sudden, a month later, hey, if you don't do this, if you don't send me a nude, if you don't send me money, if you don't come meet me here, I have all your friends. And I have all our messages and all of our chat conversations saved. And I'm going to post it. And I'm going to tag all your friends in it. So that they see every bad thing you've said about them. They're going to see everything that you wanted to keep secret. And our kids freeze. Right? And so they give in. And they give in until they reach a point where they don't know what else to do. These guys and these gals are really, really good at playing long game because they know they're going to reap the benefits. And our kids don't know who they're talking to. These are some really weird apps. Calculator. It doesn't actually look like this on your app screen. It looks like your calculator. Okay? But what this does is if I pull this app up and I type in math, if I wanted to add, divide, it does everything a normal calculator would do. But if I punch in my passcode, it takes me to a secret folder. And that secret folder contains all the videos, all the pictures, all the text messages, everything that I don't want you as my mom or dad to see. It's in there. So you can't tell me that this wasn't created to get a go-around from parents checking up on kids' phones. And the only way you know if your child has this is if they have two calculator apps. Because one calculator app comes with the phone and you can't delete it. So if they have two, it's not a glitch with the phone, they have this secret one. Vaulty is the same thing. The difference is if I pull up Vaulty and I type in my passcode, it's not the passcode, it will take a picture of whoever's trying to get in. It will send it to my email. It will send me a message. It says, hey, this person is trying to get into your account. So if I log into Vaulty and my dad's picture is there and it says this person tried to get into your account, I immediately delete all of my videos and text messages, or I move them to a calculator app and move them away so that when you go and say, hey, what is this Vaulty thing? Oh, Dad, I downloaded it like a month ago. I don't really know what it does. I don't use it here. Look, here, you're in. And you're like, yes, all right. My kid's doing good. It's a workaround. The devil. I've talked to kids across the state of Kansas, and I asked them, what picture do you want to delete itself after 10 seconds? And they just look at me. Oh, I like the filter. Well, you can actually get that same filter over here. But why do you want the picture to delete? Is it because you can send nudes? Yeah, that's the reason this app was invented. And it was going away. Our kids stopped using it about 5 years ago. And it was kind of down-ticking. I was like, finally, this app is going to die. And they brought on streaks. If I Snapchat you and you Snapchat me, that's a streak of 1. The next day, we do it again, it's a streak of 2. And so on and so on. And so I said, guys, what do you get if you have a streak of 100? Nothing. You get nothing. What if I have a streak of 365? We Snapchat each other back and forth every day for a year. What do we get? Snapchat and we have a streak of 10,000. What do we get? Nothing. But this has driven our kids to get back on Snapchat because they have to get a high streak. And you hear kids talk about my streak, my streak, my streak. It is so popular that our kids, there are sites built that when we as parents ground our kids from their phone or we take away Snapchat, they can go into these sites and type in their username and password, and people, random people, will keep up their streaks. Or, even more popular is, I give my username and password to my bestie, who keeps up my streaks. Well, then a month later, we're not besties anymore. And she uses it, or he uses it against me. I worked a case when I was an SRO. And again, this goes back to, I believe, every kid, every time, every kid is a good kid. This girl was a good kid. It's brought to me that she's sending nudes on Snapchat. I bring in mom, I bring in the daughter, and I go, what is going on? And her eyes get huge. It's not me, Officer John. I didn't do it. I would never do that. No way, no way, no way, no way. No, 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 no. It's not me. It's not me. I promise you. I swear I wouldn't. She's bawling, bawling, bawling. Then you got to give me something. It's your Snapchat. Like, look, it's your Snapchat. And mom goes, this is why we grounded you from Snapchat 2 months ago. We knew this was going to happen. And she goes, well, when she grounded me, I sent this stuff out there, and I gave people my username and my password so they could keep up my streaks. And sure enough, we were able to go through our IT, and we were able to go through the KBI. They found out that where these pictures were being sent was not here. It was actually over in India. And we went, huh. But when you get sent a torso shot and there's no head, kids aren't going to wait for that, right? Kids aren't going to care. This is what they get. But it's to keep up the streaks that get you nothing. Nothing. It's also Snapchat safety. This is one of those geolocations I was talking about. I know it's a little fuzzy up there. But this is a map, and everybody who's on Snapchat shows where they're at. There were a bunch of jokes like 3 years ago when they all wanted to storm Area 51. I don't remember if you guys remember that. That was hilarious. I love that. They pulled up the map of Area 51, and it was just one big blob of just Snapchat people. Because as soon as your Snapchat is on, it shows where your geolocation is. Now, you can go into settings, and you can turn it off. But every time the app updates, it turns it back on. And in today's world, it doesn't tell you that an app updated. It could update every other day. So unless you're going into the settings every time you get on Snapchat and turning it back off, you're running the risk of having your geolocation out there to anybody on your Snapchat friends list. They can see exactly where you are. This is where I get to tell you guys that I am Father of the Year. I told you I was the best SRO in Jackson County. I'm also Father of the Year. My 9-year-old daughter is in dance, and she dances competitively. We get to go to Kansas City tomorrow morning. I get to wake up at 4 a.m. Yes! But she dances. And my 6-year-old son goes with us, and he is a saint because he rarely makes a fuss. But there are times where when you're sitting there for 2 hours in between dances that he gets bored. So we downloaded this game. This is an actual screenshot of him playing. And it's called Block Breaker. And you fire off the balls and the blocks and they break. That's it. That's the game. But it keeps him entertained. So we were in St. Louis about a year and a half ago. And he wants to play Block Breaker. Sure, buddy, here you go. And I'm there dreading every ounce of being there, but I'm there for my daughter. And my son goes, Dad, I got him. And I said, yeah, buddy, way to go. You beat the game. Good job. You beat the level. Wait a minute, you got him. What do you mean about that? He goes, Dad, I got him, see? And that's because I do what I do, I immediately took the phone and screenshotted it. So this is actually what he was doing. This is a game called 3D Sniper. I did not download this game. I don't know where I don't know why this popped up, but it was an ad that came up after he beat a level. And he was able to play and try out this game in the ad. And the premise of this is that they show you somebody that they want you to kill, and then you get a sniper rifle and you're laying down somewhere and you get to scope people out and then shoot them and kill them. And you earn extra money if you get a headshot, which my son at the age of like 4 at the time did not do the headshot. So I got to have a really cool conversation, not only with my son about, hey, look, we don't play ads anymore, or else you don't get the phone. You're just going to play block breaker. But then I got to have a really cool conversation with my wife about, hey, I'm an idiot. Because it's not just the apps anymore. It's not just the games. Our kids are bombarded with this stuff in ads. Right? So this isn't something I learned. This is something that you can't just set your kids on and let them play through. Even if it's something simple as block breaker, it's going to pop up with ads like 3D Sniper. Like I said, our kids are bombarded with it. These are screenshots taken from my Facebook news feed, and as you can tell, they were taken about a minute apart, 322 and 323. So I'm scrolling through my Facebook as SRO Calvert, and if you have an old school phone, and you type that in, it says send nudes. And I know that because when you had to type in and press that 7 4 times for the S, I left that S off a lot. There were a lot of plural words that I just made very singular because I was not going to try hard enough to press that 7 that many times. But it says send nudes. Then, hey, send me nudes when you get home so I know you're safe. And we laugh at that. We go, that's the most dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Oh my gosh. But that grooms our children into believing that that is normal behavior. It grooms our children that's got to be okay to talk about. And when a boy asks me for a nude, well, that's okay because it's all over social media. Everybody's doing it. It's so common that this shows up on the SRO's Facebook feed. This is a message that got sent to my SRO Facebook account. You so hot. Yes. Awesome. Do you want hard sex with me? Whoa. Hey, wife, I don't know this person. Let's see, I'm not friends with them. Click on this link. I know, we're not going to click on the link. But if I get this message, our kids are getting this message. And our kids will probably click on the link, which goes back to pornography is the #1 most common search thing. It's that easy. This is a case that's going on right now in Shawnee County, where an adult allegedly contacted a bunch of children using Instagram, Snapchat, Kick, and Grindr. I hope that those apps sound vaguely familiar over the last 30 minutes that I've been talking to you. It is happening, and people are preying on our children, and it is bad. And as you can tell, this person allegedly had 5 accounts on Instagram, 5 accounts on Snapchat, and 1 on Kick and Grindr. So they're using multiple accounts to get multiple kids, to draw them in, because they play the long game. Because if I can get 1, it's going to get me roughly $400,000 over the next 5 years. 1. Our suicide rates are skyrocketing. Our kids are suffering. 1 in 13 of our youth will attempt suicide. 1 in 13. Topeka just put out something that said that at this point this year from last year, we are up 140% of completed suicides. I don't play political games. I don't do that because nobody wins. But we're going to be seeing the mental health breakdown from this pandemic for years. We have got to start talking to our kids. We have got to start talking to their friends. I talk to kids all the time about if you want to see change in your schools, you want to see change in your communities, it's up to you guys. Because the fat, bald, ugly 37-year-old will come and talk to you for 45 minutes and jump around and make you laugh and give you a good message, but it's not going to change anything. But if your best friend tells you, hey, I'm worried about you, you're going down the wrong path, you're going to listen to that person. And sometimes we as parents don't see the changes in our kids, or we don't understand the changes, but their friends do. And so it's up to us, it's up to the kids to bring their friends into the counselor, into a trusted adult to where we can get them help. We've got to teach them coping mechanisms. A lot of this says that at first failure, the first big breakup, the first big job loss, the first time they get in trouble with the law, they don't have the coping mechanisms to handle it. They don't know what else to do. So they take the permanent solution to the temporary problem. I have an article in my office from 1988 that says that suicide is the 6th leading cause of death of our youth. And in 2021, I'm sad to say that suicide is the 2nd leading cause of death in our kids. So whatever we did from 88 to 2021 didn't work. And this notion of if we don't talk about it, they won't do it, doesn't work. The number 1 leading cause, by the way, is distracted driving. So it's amazing to me to think that if we have thoughtful, meaningful conversations and engage our kids, we could realistically lower the number 1 and number 2 cause of death of our kids, and more of our children will live. Hit on it a bunch, child sex trafficking. It is the 2nd largest and fastest growing criminal industry in the world. And we are here in Kansas with major thoroughfares north and south and east and west. In a matter of hours, they can pick up our kids and be in a different state. And our children are 100% reliant on their predator. A lot of them believe the predator loves them. So if I have to go get tricked out and prostitute myself to make money for my lover, then that's exactly what I got to do, because I got to provide for him because he loves me. Or I'm scared to death and they said they were going to kill me. So if I don't go prostitute myself, I'm going to die. And I'm 100% reliant on them, so I got to do it. This is from the Kansas Attorney General's office. These are reported facts, right? These are the kids, these are the people that stepped up and said, I'll admit this, right? 2 and 5 say their parents know very little about what they do. 40% of our kids say, my parents don't know jack about what I'm doing, right? 20% have received sexual solicitation online. I would bet that number is a lot higher than 20%. 82% of online sex crimes, the offender used social media. 82%. 39% of teens have admitted to sending sexually suggestive messages. So again, 40% of our kids are admitting that they're sending these type of messages. So my 9-year-old daughter is very emotional. Very emotional. I don't really know how to handle it, but she's emotional. We go into lockdown and I see that she needs interaction with other like-aged children. Me and mom and 6-year-old brother ain't cutting it. So I did weeks of research. Messenger Kids is a great app for our younger kids. It's an app that says, if you have a child who wants to be my child's friend on Messenger Kids, we have to be friends on Facebook. And I have to connect with you to say, hey, is this real? And you say, yeah, that's my kid. I'm like, all right. And they can connect. It then shows me every message that is being sent back and forth. Now, I say that, but I don't allow my daughter to talk on this app unmonitored. I still check up. And I get weekly updates to say, who she talked to the most? What was the most viewed picture? What was the most done this? So again, even if I miss something, I'm getting updates from Facebook. My biggest concern was I don't want her to fall into fake profiles. But because we have to be friends on Facebook and we have to connect as adults, I'm not too terribly worried about that. But it doesn't mean that I just throw this at her and say, there you go, do whatever you need to do. We still monitor. We're going to hold our kids accountable. When they mess up, tell them they messed up. Punish them. It's okay. Right? They made a mistake, but I'd rather them make mistakes when they're younger than when they're 18, 19 and have to deal with the sheriff. Right? Because they're young kids and they really don't know what they're doing. Phone usage in front of adults only. They don't need to take the phone to the bedroom. They don't need to take the phone to the bathroom. What are you taking a picture of in the bathroom that people want to see? Right? Oh, my poop made a J. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see it. It's gross. Don't take it in the bathroom. Charge the phone in your room. Don't charge it in the living room. Don't charge it in the kitchen. Don't charge it in a neutral space. Because our kids will wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning, go out there and get on their phone. Charge it in your room. So they have to physically come into your room to get it. Monitor the usage. Have an open dialogue. Hey, what's going on? How's everything going? What is this app? I don't understand it. What is this app used for? Why can't you do X, Y, Z? I wouldn't give my daughter the password to anything. If you want to download an app, you have to come talk to me first, right? So she has an iPad that has Messenger Kids and Roblox. That's it. But before she got to do any of that, I was able to download the app. I Googled it. What is this app used for? What is this app for? Then I created my own profile, right? I would take it a step further. When she turns 13 and wants to start using these other apps, I would create a profile as the 13-year-old girl. Because people are going to interact differently with the 37-year-old bald fat guy than they are with the 13-year-old girl. And if I can get access into things as a 13-year-old girl, then I know that my 13-year-old daughter is going to be able to have access to it. And I don't have to play this while I'm 37. Maybe it's not as bad for the 13-year-old. I don't interact with other youth. I don't interact with other profiles. I just want to see what I can get into and what it's all about. Right? I'm not here telling you go create fake profiles and perp on kids. Please don't do that. But see what our kids are doing. If you have a 16-year-old boy, go into an app as a 16-year-old boy. What is he able to see? What is he able to do? Is this an app that I really want my kid on? Google it. What's the information on this? What are they using it for? What is it really geared towards? Right? And then share the information with others. Listen, just like there's no bad kids, we're not bad parents. We're going to make mistakes. I showed you mine, but we're not going to learn from anything. We, as a village, are not going to be able to raise our children as a village if we don't help each other out because, we have to be quiet because we don't want everybody to know that you messed up online. Shh. No. Screaming from the mountaintop. John was an idiot, and John downloaded this, and he got onto this, and was doing all this, and talking to people, and sending pictures, and boy, oh boy, is he stupid. And man, he is in trouble. I smashed his phone, and I threw it up on the roof. All of a sudden, that next parent goes over and says, oh man, my kid has the same app. We might save somebody. We just got to be open and honest and stop trying to feel like we have to be the best. We're all going through this together, folks. I'll leave this up here for a second if you want to take pictures. I'll also come back to it here in a minute. But these are some really good apps if you want to talk about social media and how to talk to your kids about being online and digital citizenship. Some great websites out there. If you don't have your phone, you don't have to get a picture, you want it later, if you email the sheriff or if you email the superintendent, they can get with me. I can get them this slide so that you guys can have access to it. Don't be discouraged. I know it's tough. It sucks being an adult. I tell kids all the time, don't grow up. It is a trap. Okay? But I researched this, and this is legit. They legitimately have lifeguards at the Olympics. And I feel like I would be a really good position for that because they have lifeguards at the Olympics. Right? So some days I feel like I'm making a big change and a big difference, and other days I feel like probably those lifeguards do at the Olympics. Worthless. This is my contact information. Please feel free to contact me at any time. I did leave some business cards. And yes, that is my twin, Chris P. Bacon. That was my last yearbook photo, and you know, sometimes you just gotta brace all the stereotypes are out there, and the kids thought it was hilarious. But that's my Facebook, that's my Twitter. Like I said, I have no idea what I'm doing on Twitter. But that's my email and my phone number. Feel free to contact me, email me with any questions, any concerns, anything that you feel like I could do for you, your kids, your schools. The cool thing about me working for the State Department of Ed is that just about anything that I do is 100% free. I ask maybe for a cup of coffee, but I'll come out and talk because I love to talk. So I appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys being a great audience. Are we taking questions now or at the end?
Let's take it at the end.
Okay, so if you have questions, I'll be here at the end, and I'll throw this back up there for anybody who wants to get a quick picture. But thank you guys so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, John. John has given an explanation here of how things can happen, how our children can become a victim of a predator. When that happens, and it gets reported to the sheriff's office or the local police, however it's reported, we locally rely on an organization called Lifehouse Children's Advocacy Center in Topeka. The Lifehouse employees are trained in forensic interviews. They help us with the youth to elicit information when the youth is a victim, a witness, and such. And our next guest is Lynette Longstaff, and she is from Lifehouse, and also the executive director, Kelly, is here. Stand up, Kelly, so they can see you. I can't say enough about this organization. Since I've been in Wabunsee County for going on 17 years, 18 years now, they have helped us on over 100 cases. I got to try to count. And we roughly take about 20 to 30 cases a year over to the Lifehouse, where they help us with children, help them find their words, help them describe what has happened to them. And like I said, I can't say enough about this organization, but I'm going to leave it to her to tell you what techniques we use, because the most important thing that we can emphasize is communicating with your children. Knowing your children need to know that you love them, that no matter what they come to you to tell you, you know, it's not as bad as prostituting yourself online. You know, children get scared, like he was explaining. These people get on these websites and they solicit secrets from your child, and then they're using those secrets against them to make them do things that are just terrible. And I'll leave it to her now to talk about it.
And so, my name is Lynette. I'm a forensic interviewer and family advocate at Lifehouse Child Advocacy Center.
It's in the white.
Is it working? Okay. And so at Lifehouse, what we do is we bring together the professionals needed to investigate allegations of child sexual abuse, severe physical abuse, and if they were to be a witness of crime or violence. And so I specifically do both forensic interviewing and family advocacy. And so as a forensic interviewer, I meet with the kids and interview them when they are the alleged victims of said abuse. As an advocate, I get to work with the non-offending caregivers to provide resources, really just listen, and guide them, because no parent prepares for this when they come to Lifehouse. And so our goal is to make it as comfortable and neutral for them as possible. And so today, a lot of the information provided is from our Protecting Your Children advice from child molesters presentation. It's something that Kelly and my program director Jill present. It's really cool because it was from professionals who went out and interviewed convicted sex offenders. And they volunteered to provide information on how they do what they do and to help professionals then know. So as we're working these cases and we're getting training, we know kind of what their tricks and how they do all the things that they're doing. And so another part of my role at Lifehouse is that I get to go out and I get to talk with community members and I get to raise awareness and education on what to do when this happens or when it's something that's directly affecting you. And so if your child comes to you and they say, I have to tell you something, I've been sexually abused, the best thing to do is to believe them. Research shows that when a child is believed the very first time that they disclose, it just increases their ability to heal from the trauma. It's just a better chance for them to heal. And so, but also as a parent, I know that you want to know when your child comes to you and says, this has happened, you want to know what happened, where it happened, who it happened with, you know, a lot of those questions. But I would not ask those questions. Because if your child's coming to you, the best thing you can do is just listen and let them know, I believe you, how can I help you? And once your child has made this disclosure, then the best thing as a parent is to report it either to DCF, law enforcement, or both. And so, kids will also start to disclose in little pieces. So if they say, you know, Uncle Jimmy, he did something weird. And you're like, oh, Uncle Jimmy, he wouldn't do something weird. Then that tells the child that if they were to get more than just Uncle Jimmy's doing something weird, oh, I can't go to my parent, they just got mad at me for this, or they're going to get mad at Uncle Jimmy. And so it makes it harder for them to continue disclosing the abuse if our initial reaction is not what makes the child feel most comfortable. You know? And then also as the process goes, then it makes it that much harder as a forensic interviewer to make that child comfortable enough to talk about the abuse. And so the steps of, so when kids come to Lifehouse, it's typically because they've already made a disclosure to someone, and that disclosure has been made aware to law enforcement, DCF, or both. And so it's at a point that we're aware of what's going on. And then they come here and pretty much know why they're here because they've said something to someone. And so if your child does come to you and says, you know, I'm being abused, do not allow contact between the offender and the child. Do what you can do to best protect your child and to get them away from the alleged perpetrator. If you have no idea how to do that, or you have questions on how to go about that, then I would recommend just letting law enforcement know as soon as your child comes to you. And I would not confront the offender. If it's someone who's known to you, and most likely if your child has come to you, it is someone that you know, I would not confront the offender. One, because law enforcement loves the surprise of getting to talk to offenders. They want them to not be as prepared knowing that law enforcement's going to come talk to them at some point. Because they prepare for someone to come to them. They prepare what their defense is going to be. Oh, whatever they say, they're going to come up with a whole lot of lies. And so, and if you were to go and confront the offender before calling the police, they may try to talk you out of calling the police. They may say, you know, I did do something weird, but she's kind of that's not exactly what happened. And then they're going to rationalize or minimalize what they did. And then, because why would Uncle Jimmy do something? You know? I love her. I wouldn't do something to her. And so they're going to do what they can to avoid the police getting involved if you confront them first. If you find that someone is maybe acting inappropriate, but it's not quite, or you feel like it's against the law, then by all means, as a parent, have a conversation with that person to say, you're is something I don't find okay with my child. Don't be afraid to protect your children and to have those conversations. And really having those conversations with kids, you know. If someone is making you feel uncomfortable, identifying who they can go to when things like that are happening. This is a pretty scary statistic. Average sex offenders have 120 incidents before the first kid tells. So that could be an offender perpetrating on 120 different children or one child 120 times before being caught. And 1 out of every 20 men you know is a sex offender. Because there is no one race, there's no one gender, socioeconomic status. Yeah, they will pick whoever. It happens everywhere and it happens to anybody. And so when you're talking to kids about, you know, body safety and internet safety, blend it into other safety talks. You know, like when they're kids, we talk about fire safety, wearing a helmet, wearing a seatbelt, things like that. As you talk about, you know, body safety and having the sex talk with your children, the sooner you start it and the more you make it a norm, the more comfortable they become with the topic. And it's not quite as weird to them when you start talking to them when they're a teenager, because everything's weird when they're a teenager. And so, I tell families all the time as an advocate, this is the first step in just continuing to have these conversations with parents, or with your kids. And the more comfortable you are talking to your kids about this, the more comfortable they're going to feel with it. Because kids can pick up on the energy if parents are like, oh, this is weird. I don't want to tell my kid about this. So then they're going to pick up like, ooh, mom's being weird about this. Why is this weird? And so things that you might say to your kids, you know, if anyone tries to touch or to look at private parts or tries to show them pictures of anybody without clothes on, or tries to keep it a secret, tell someone as soon as possible. Whether it's you or someone that you've identified with them that is a safe person. Like school people, maybe someone in the church, maybe an older sibling if they have adult older siblings. Because identifying those safe people before they're in a situation where they need the safe people helps kids. Because it's not fair to lay this on the kids, to wait for them to get perpetrated on, and then think, what do I do now? Like, I don't know what to do, I'm 10 years old. I have no idea what to do moving forward. And so when you're talking about the whole safety concept, you don't have to just focus on sex. But you don't forget about the sex part either. And some of the advice from child molesters on what doesn't work is thinking that no one you know is an offender. Depending on children to protect themselves. Expecting that children will be able to tell someone. A lot of times as the interviewer, I have kids that they come in and they talk about all the things that happen and they're like, wow, I've never told anyone that before. And you can just see the relief that they have from holding this secret in. But there are so many reasons why kids are able to tell someone. They can feel ashamed, they can feel fearful. They can also, most of the time, love the perpetrator because it's someone that they know. Ignoring children's sexual acting out. There are appropriate and healthy behaviors that kids have. There are also not so healthy and appropriate behaviors. And when they exhibit these not so appropriate behaviors, it's important to address them. That's the word. To address them as soon as you notice them, because the sooner you notice it and you're able to address it, the better off the kiddo is. You want to deter them from the negative behaviors they're exhibiting as soon as you can. And then also, the stranger danger, no go tell, good touch, bad touch. Offenders hear all about that too, but they have so many tricks, they know how to go about that. And so with stranger danger, It's not the creepy man in the van in the trench coat that's going to take your kid and do whatever. It's their grandpa. It's their stepdad. It's their aunt. A lot of it is family or close family or people that they interact with in the community, like coaches, teachers, things like that. And so as far as stranger danger goes, and Officer John did it really well, it's the internet. That is the huge stranger danger right now. They could get on Facebook and it looks like someone like another 14-year-old girl. I can friend request her back. But it's really a 60-year-old man who's just sitting behind his computer and then he's gonna solicitate me for nudes later. And so kids, part of internet safety is knowing what you're putting on the internet, really who you're talking to on the internet, and what you're getting yourself into with the internet, because everything stays. It can never go away. And then with good touch and bad touch, it's a great concept, but with perpetrators, obviously the acts that they're doing, they're bad. But our bodies are meant to feel certain ways within sexual abuse. And so when a child is confused, like, well, what he did, it didn't feel bad. So it must not have been a bad touch. And so that talk is confusing in a way that perpetrators want to continue doing what they're doing. So they're not going to make it where it's hurtful to them or maybe feels bad to them because they want to be able to keep perpetrating. And so having conversations of there are places on our bodies that are not okay for people to touch or to try to touch or for us to see or to ever show us without clothes on is really important. Identifying those body parts and calling them with the anatomically correct names. Because we call an arm, so why would we not call all the rest of our body parts what they're called? And it lessens the likelihood that kids would be perpetrated on because they have a better idea of their bodies and are more empowered with their bodies. And so what does work is taking responsibility and educating yourself, just like you guys are all doing here today. And so this is a great first step in knowing how to help your kids and how to talk about this if this were to ever happen. Because like I've said, we can't just rely on our kids to figure it out for themselves. We have to kind of take that initiative to help them. But also as parents, trust your instincts. Don't be too confident about it, but if you feel like something's going on, trust that feeling. And being alert, being aware of what your kids are doing. And also something I find is teaching and maintaining healthy rules and boundaries. A really good one I like is not forcing kids to hug. If my kids didn't want to hug their grandma, that's their right. It's their choice who they want to hug and who they don't at that time. Because if I'm telling them, no, you gotta go hug grandma, then they're gonna think, well, mom makes me do things that I don't want to do, so if cousin Sam wants me to do something with him that I don't want to do, then it's okay, because mom has me do it too. So really just maintaining healthy boundaries and respecting what kids want to do with their bodies, and starting that at a really young age. And also, as a parent, we don't want it to happen, but we have to always be prepared that our child could be a potential victim of child sexual abuse. And so knowing what we need to do, how to prevent it, and being aware of it when it does happen. And so another great thing of talking to kids about abuse, it's like stealing and lying. People make bad choices, and there are consequences to those choices. Just like people choose to touch parts of people's bodies that they're not supposed to. They chose to do that, and they have consequences for their actions, just like if they were to lie or to steal. And so, we recommend not calling it like a sickness. Like if, cousin Sam, he's just really sick right now with what he chose to do. Like us as adults, we can differentiate like a sick-minded thing to do and a physical illness. But kids do not have the abstract ability to differentiate the two. So they may hear cousin Sam has this illness and think, well, Grandpa child died because he was sick. So cousin Sam must be the same way. And so then they might feel fearful or sad or not want to get them in trouble because they think they're sick. And so just a caution. And then as parents, going to things like this and being aware of what's on the internet and what's popular for kids to do. Because as the world evolves, offender tricks evolve. They, like you were saying, the first thing that ever was looked up was porn on the internet. So obviously from the get-go, the internet was filled with horrible things. And so perpetrators, they keep up to date with these things. As parents and caregivers, we have to keep up with it too, to be the best protectors for the kids that we can be. And so when you're talking with kids, it's not a one-time, you talk about their bodies and think, yeah, they got it, they heard me. It's something that you should continue to do several times throughout the year. Mix it in with other safety topics. And as they get older, add more and more, because they need to know more and more as they get older. And when your child comes to you, if they are talking, just listen. I would not interrupt them, use their words. And that's something that I do as an interviewer. I'm using what the child's words are, because that's what they know. I'm not introducing anything new. I'm not trying to guess what they're saying. I'm listening to them, and I'm hearing the words they're saying. And when they come to you, notice their body language, or fear of possible intimidation. Because that can all go into play when they come to you and what has actually happened to them. And so when they come to you, something you could do is take notes afterwards of what they said, because that might be helpful for investigators afterward. I would not do so while they're right there with you, so that you're not taking away the focus when they're there with you. And so when they come to you, the best thing is you can say, I believe you, this is not your fault. That is not okay. I'm listening. I'm sorry this happened. How can I help you? What are you most worried about right now? Asking these questions to figure out where they are in their head or safety-wise, but you're not probing them for details or to make them think about the traumatic event or events that may have happened. Things not to say would be that, no, that couldn't have happened. Are you sure that's what happened? That must be a mistake. Grandpa, he would never do that. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why didn't you tell me? If you weren't the one that your child came to and you found out from your spouse or your sister or your parent. Don't ask the child, did you say no? Research tells us that kids who are believed from the very first time are really better able to recover from the abuse. And even with the best intentions, parents may ask, oh my gosh, why are you just telling me this now? This happened a year ago. We could have been helping you. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Or why didn't you tell me at all? Or things like that. And I get it. You're just being a parent and you're worried about your child. And so if just listening is the best response that you could have to your child. The questions you have, you may figure out later as the investigation goes on. But the child really shouldn't have to be asked about the abuse over and over and over again. Because during the forensic interview, it's very detailed. And the purpose of a forensic interview is that it's non-duplicative, it's purposeful, and it's fact-finding. The questions that we ask are non-suggestive, non-leading, is neutral and comfortable for the child. And so just trust the process, that the information that you want to know or need to know to keep your child safe will come out either during an interview or when you meet with investigators later on. And so Officer John, he went through a ton of social media. So we are good on that. But as far as reporting internet crime, there are a couple options, and we brought slips. So So that way you guys have those resources available for you to bring home with you. And if you have questions or concerns, you can make that report, you can call your local law enforcement, you can ask social workers that work in your county. I have these concerns, but I'm not really sure what the next step is. And I'm sure they would be happy to reach out to you. Also, Lifehouse would be happy to help guide you. And if you have concerns or there's a behavior you notice, or if your child has come to you and you're like, I remember this lady came to talk to me, but I cannot for the life remember what she said to do next or what to do first. I have a million thoughts running through my mind and I cannot think clearly. We are happy to help you with that. And so, I've also found that with COVID, there has been a significant increase in child sexual abuse facilitated through technology. Kids had to be quarantined, they've had to use their internet, their technology a lot more they've had to use their technology a lot more this last year than they ever have. And so, there is a lot more child sexual abuse being facilitated through technology. Those do include sexually explicit images. And we're trying to get away from the terminology of child pornography to reshape it and take it away from the stereotypes of pornography itself. So it's starting to be, the terminology for it is child sexual abuse material, or CSAM. And so, generally students who send nudes are only doing so because someone asked them to. And this is where conversations of internet safety, body safety, empowerment really come into play. I mean, you can tell your kid all you want. Once you send something, it's, you're never going to get it back. Once it's on the internet, it's never going to go away. But really being honest with them and knowing what the actual consequences are. If you do this, think about your grandma seeing it. Like, would you want grandma to see this picture of you? No. Or grandpa, or mom, or dad. Do you want your coach to find this later and then you can't play the sport you want or go to the school activity that you want? And these images are not just in high school. They are starting in elementary school now. It's crazy young. And so this is why we have to have these conversations with kids as young as they can start speaking. Because the more knowledge they have, the better prepared we are to make decisions like this if they're put in a position like this. Because if we're not the ones having this conversation with kids, then it's the perpetrator's fault. They're going to be the first ones in and say, oh no, it's okay, I love you. So this is just a way we say I love you to each other. And then a lot of times those built relationships are what keep kids from wanting to disclose too, because they grow to care about the person. Offenders have a lot of tricks on how they pick kids, how they pick families, whether it's through online or it's a physical act on a child. There are a lot of ways in which they go about gaining trust with the family, gaining trust with the child, without just the threat of harm. And so that's something to consider. And kids also don't tell because they may not understand what's happening. And that's, again, where having these conversations with kids is important, because if they don't know that it's wrong, or they're like, I really don't even know what's going on with my body. Okay, this is something that started as soon as they were young. They're going to have no idea until someone tells them different, that this was not okay. And so a lot of times I also know when I talk to kids, a lot of them are fearful because they don't want their loved one to go to jail or to get them in trouble, especially when it's a parent in the home or a sibling in the home who's been perpetrating on them. They're like, yeah, I didn't want to say anything because I love them and I don't want them to go to jail. I don't want mom to be mad at me. I've also heard, I couldn't tell about my stepdad. My mom's just been so stressed, she can't work, so he's the one that brings home all the food, and I'm tired of being homeless. So it's worth it because I didn't have to be homeless anymore. And so there's so much pressure on kids when they're going through this. there aren't a lot of symptoms of child sexual abuse. If you notice anything or you are concerned about anything, by all means, call someone and talk about it. But just because your child may show a symptom does not automatically mean that they are a victim of child sexual abuse. But maybe starting that conversation with them if you have that concern. And if you're waiting for your child to show a symptom of abuse, it is too late, because then that's to the point that their body is so overwhelmed by the stress that they are now showing these symptoms. Some of them may be stomach aches, headaches, sleep disturbances, wetting the bed, unexplained fears like, I don't want to go to grandpa's anymore. I just don't want to. They may throw a fit over it. And we're like, why? We were just there last week. What is so bad? But to them, if they don't want to go. Kids, if they're little, they may start masturbating in public because they're like, well, I did it at, Aunt Kimmer's house, so why can't I do it in public? Like it was okay there, because it's not a conversation that's been had. Older kids may use escape behavior like drugs, alcohol, running away, or they're having more high-risk behavior because they just want to escape the life that they're currently living. A lot of younger kids, if they have an inappropriate understanding of sex, they use terminology that's way too above their age. Like, where are they getting this from? It could be possible that kids at school are talking about it, but it also could be possible that someone is teaching them about this. They may be fearful of a touch by a certain person, or they may start to coerce or manipulate other children because of how they were manipulated or coerced as children. And so just being weary of that. And so as far as the trauma, more trauma occurs when children are abused by someone they depend on or love. The amount of trauma is not necessarily correlated by the sexual act done. I've had kiddos who were fondled over the clothes, and that was the worst thing that has ever happened to them. I've also had kids who were sodomized, and they said, yeah, I've had worse. And so we can't judge trauma based off of the act that's happening. We can't judge trauma based off, well, it was just over technology. I'm sure they're fine. They weren't touched. They never met. We can't base their trauma off of it. They are the ones to base the trauma off of it. It's their experience. It's their feelings from what happened. But most children can recover from abuse. Prior education about abuse, like you guys having conversations with them, support and treatment really makes a difference for kiddos. So when kids come to Lighthouse, we have an awesome grant program that we're able to refer kids to therapy who are trauma informed and know about how to go about talking with kids in circumstances like this. Because I found that the faster kids can start receiving help, the better off that they are after disclosing. It's found that a lot of kids will start showing symptoms or acting out more after they've disclosed the abuse. I have no idea why, but that is just how it's going on. And so, the fact that most children don't show any signs or symptoms that they're being abused is an important reason why we have these conversations with kids. Because we have no idea when it's happening or who it's happening with until they are finally have the courage to say something themselves. And so at Lighthouse, we are in Topeka, Kansas, but we serve Wabunsee County, Shawnee County, and a lot of outlying counties. And so in 2020, we actually served 30% of our cases were from outlying counties, so Wabunsee County included. 85% of our cases were allegations of child sexual abuse. And so we had 293 forensic interviews at Lifehouse last year. And that was with COVID, with quarantine, and going through social distancing and all of that good stuff. It doesn't stop because the whole world shuts down. It's going to find a new way of growing and spreading. And that's where, offenders, they're going to continue to evolve. They evolved once COVID hit. They're like, fine, I'll use technology. I'll still get what I want. And so, and 90% of the kids that we interviewed at Lifehouse knew their offender. I will say that there was the jump with strangers because of online cases. But most of the time, kids know who their offender is. And that makes it just that much harder to talk about. And so I very much appreciate that you guys came here and were willing to listen, and you guys are doing your part to keep kids safe. Lifehouse is always happy to go out into the community and to share what we do and why we do what we do. I love talking about how to keep kids safe, and part of advocacy is helping parents and talking to parents, because they're like, I've noticed this and I have no idea why. And connecting those dots for parents, or helping them with a resource, because it's one of the hardest parts of their life when they're having to go through this, and it's chaos. And so for them to just come to Lifehouse and get a moment to just sit and get their questions answered, and knowing that law enforcement and DCF are there to answer and say, this is what our plan is moving forward. And after the interview, as an advocate, I get to follow through the Kids in Court program and watching them go through the court system and being that continued support for them. And so thank you for helping us by letting us come here and talk with you guys today.
Thank you very much. One of the most important features when as police officers, when we investigate these incidents where something's happened, is forgiveness. Parents, we have to forgive our children for their mistakes. We have to help our children learn to forgive themselves for the mistakes they made. And then most importantly, parents, we have to forgive ourselves for in our minds, we think, how did we allow this to happen? How could this have happened? These are the most precious people in my world. How could something like this have happened? But forgiveness is the first step to healing. And I can't think of anybody better to speak on that than Pastor Grimm. I've asked him to come to us and also have a few words this evening.
There we go. Wanted to make sure that it was going to work. I do want to talk a little bit about technology. So what I did is I pulled out a phone when I first learned how to text. I don't know if any of you remember this. This is about 12 years old for a model phone. And my 90-year-old father-in-law laughed at me and said, when are you going to come into the modern age and get a smartphone? In fact, the day before he died last summer, he said, well, to my wife, why don't you Google it? Because he really enjoyed technology. Now, I couldn't get this phone to come on tonight. I plugged it in for a couple hours. I haven't used it in a long time. Because the reason I have a smartphone now is I had this in my pocket and I happened to leave it in my pocket and it went through the washing machine. That's about as much as I know about technology. What I did was wrong. Pure and simple. And there was a price to pay because of that. It meant me getting a new phone. My kid said it made me get into the 21st century. But the truth is, people make mistakes. And how we deal with those mistakes really determines how we will view not only ourselves, but others in the future. The sheriff's right. I want to talk about forgiveness tonight. I want to talk about the things that can happen that we do, that we end up making a mess of things. I believe, and I heard that stated a couple times already tonight, I believe you. It's important to show faith. I believe that it's important that we not condone, not conform to standards that the world might hold to, because the world pushes towards things that aren't always right and good. There are some things that are worth condemning. Sexual abuse in any form is one of those things. It's become much easier than it used to be because we can hide behind false names and the internet. Your children can hide behind false names on the internet. And so there were a couple things I wrote down on my notepad here. It's easy to do cyberbullying. It's not any harder now than it was years past to do some lying. It's probably okay to learn as a child how to do some sexting. But these aren't good behaviors, they're bad behaviors. And we can write a whole long list of different things that there may be that we don't want to see our children doing. What we do want to do is make sure we are listening and teaching so that it doesn't continue. We're trying to make sure that what we are able to have is a place where it's safe to be, to live, and to grow. And so I brought with me a marker that'll help me to make an illustration this evening. Okay. I can put that back into my pocket. I believe that forgiveness is essential. And I can't talk about forgiveness unless I talk about the cross. Now, the cross covers up a lot of these things, and in fact, forgiveness means that you take some of those things away. It's probably okay that I broke the pencil lead, because I need the eraser. As I erase these things, they're not really there anymore. The bullying, the lying, the sexting, the other things, but there are some remains that keep falling off. And I guess you could say there's still some ghosts of the things that are there. Not because the cross isn't sufficient, but because we are who we are. And we remember things that we don't. That's why it's important that we keep offering grace. As parents, Nothing makes you feel worse, nothing makes me feel worse than when I see my children get victimized. And yet I understand if there's no grace, I hurt myself, I hurt my family, and I hurt others. And so I turn people to the cross to say God is big enough to take it. I didn't intend to go here tonight, but I'm going to, because when I was just a young man, not even a pastor, but I was on my vicarage, in another place, in another time, I was simply a friend to a 14-year-old who 10 years later came down and looked me up and said, "You helped me get through some very tough times." And she said, "I have a story to tell you." The story was that 14-year-old, while she was in the grade school where I was doing my work, had been raped by her father at least 6 times during that year. And she said, "You were the only thing that kept me from killing myself." I had no knowledge of any of that until 10 years later. But it's grace that we offer to people that can make a difference. That's what I'm going to encourage you to look to share, and to live out. It isn't always easy. There are choices that we make, and parents make choices just as much as children do, and parents make wrong choices just as much as children do. But hopefully they aren't as impactful. The choices we make consider what happens. I believe in grace. And ultimately, I do believe in accountability. Therefore, this is a challenge for us. And I hurt for us because this is not what we want to see happening, but we know that it is. As long as there's opportunities, people will make choices. As parents, help them to make good choices. And I want to help them to do that too. So, the cross does cover sin. The Savior blesses. The name Jesus saves. Don't be afraid to use it and to trust Him. Thank you for your attention. I really believe this is a vital thing because I posted this in my congregation as not one more, part 2. I see the opportunity for suicide to be increased by this. I hate suicide. Maybe as much as the sheriff does, because we've faced some of it together. I hate the things that it leaves. I hate the trouble that's left behind. But I understand there's hope. And hope comes because God can cover the things we cannot. Thank you for your attention. Sheriff, back to you.
John out there? Where's John Calvin? Yeah. Lynette, if you'll come down. Just have a few moments for Q&A. If anybody has any questions that they'd like from these people, or any want to know about any resources, I'm sure that they can help us out. Good bunch. You got it all in one effort. Need to have any questions? Well, I'll ask Pastor Grimm to come down again and close us in prayer.
How about if I just stand up here? I can do it without the microphone, I think, for the gymnasium. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace. Amen.
Thank you very much for coming this evening. I just am overwhelmed every time we have one of these. It's a number of people to come and the support we give. Thank you all.